I had reached a catalytic moment in my life by the time I was 30, and I had, at that point, been at a place of helplessness, hopelessness, and really just wanting out of my life. And in that moment of realization for my own self, I knew that I was in trouble, so to speak, within my own psyche and within my own life. And so I had actually a moment of prayer that basically where I said, you know, God, take me from this life or make everything I've been through mean something. And so through that and a series of events, I mean, the universe is magical in what begins to take place and happen.
Yes.
People and circumstances, events started to show up that really helped me to be able to begin to heal my own brokenness. I now really believe none of us are broken, but at the time, that's really where I was. And it was as a result of the healing I received that I began to recognize the power that was available in not only transforming the deepest or most difficult wounds of our past, but also what led me to feel so inspired and passionate about helping others in the same way. I did a very good job at suppressing that trauma, pretending it wasn't happening.
People wouldn't know.
People
Yeah.
wouldn't know. I looked like I was extremely happy on the
Smiling.
outside,
Hi,
had
I'm
everything
Bonnie. How are
together.
you? Right.
Exactly. But in the meantime, I was really suffering on the inside. And it was, you know, through the suppression, what happens when we look at suppressing or denying the feelings of what transpired, whether, you know, or being able to really feel it. I believe in feeling it to heal it. And so I had denied myself of it. When we look at suppressing it, that suppression gets depressed inside of our bodies.
Yeah.
And as that depression starts to take place, it starts to affect our emotional well-being. And as it continues to be suppressed or ignored or denied, it moves into where our body is just begin holding this, and it can begin to manifest in different illnesses, creating different, you know, a dis-ease within the whole system, whether it's mentally, emotionally, or even physically. And so when we look at being able to even bring words to the things that had happened to us, we start to release what has been suppressed, because now we're expressing it. And the moment we can express it, we begin to be able to heal it as well. But we need to feel it by all means and all ways. And I think that's exactly what we want to avoid. When we've been hurt, when we've been wounded, when we've been traumatized, we don't want to go there again. It was too painful of an experience at that time.
Right.
Where we don't want to even acknowledge that it happened, let alone to have to get sucked into what is the pain or suffering of that. So we do it by means of coping. We do it by means of self-preservation.
Yeah.
And looking at just being able to move forward, to almost pretend it away, so that if we don't, that way it maybe didn't happen, it never happened.
Right.
Right. And so we get very keen at ignoring. I actually said I should have won an Academy.
Ignoring, yeah.
I should have won an Academy Award at how well I could.
You pulled it off.
I pulled it off.
Thought everything
Absolutely,
was good.
Yeah. We're here to experience joy. We're here to know well-being, and those were, you know, we sometimes feel like these are the cards that have been dealt in my life, and we feel stuck. We feel like there's no momentum forward, and we just need to settle for where we are or accept life as we know it, and that's simply not the case.
Now, some people may have heard of talk therapy. Is any of this involved talk therapy, or is this different from talk therapy, and what would the differences be?
Yeah, well, talk therapy is definitely incorporated within the work I do, simply because we need to be able to tell someone about what
Open
has
up
happened, and being able to
share.
give words to the pain, to tell the stories. There were, I know for myself, the stories that I held through experiences I never spoke of. I never told anyone. And so to be able to, as even I move through my own healing journey, to be able to give voice to that was powerful. So that is definitely a part of the process. I also do, you know, energy work or energy medicine as well. And so through many different trainings or modalities, begin to kind of follow what would be in someone's best, or their, you know, in sharing what are some of the energy healing. Obviously, people need to be open and willing to receive what's available. But, you know, through talk therapy becomes very powerful, but we add in the aspect of energy healing into it, and it really begins to be very transformative. The other key within it, I think that what sets maybe the work I do maybe apart or different than other people, is I use my connection to the other side. I use the connection to their guides to receive what would be a very personalized approach or guidance that is specific for the individual, and that really makes a big and powerful difference. I might think I know what someone needs, but when I open up and I receive the guidance on their behalf, it begins to really speak to what their heart needs the most.
I would imagine, too, establishing that trust right at the outset,
Yeah.
trust between you and them and you,
Yes.
sort of facilitates this open door for them to then be able to share probably some things that they don't even share with their closest loved ones and friends.
Absolutely.
Because there's this trust, non-judgmental zone that you're offering to them. You're not judging them, you're here to listen and then guide them and come up with a way to help them through. Tell us about the importance of trust.
Yeah, and trust is a major factor. And I think a big piece of it is also being able to hold a space of what would be compassion for the human condition.
Right.
Compassion for what they've been through without judgment. Because I think that's probably one of our biggest hurdles in this, as human beings, or our ego. We always like to judge, and our own self especially. And so being able to have a space where they can just open up to be seen and to be heard is a very powerful thing. And the thing is, one of the things with trauma, I think it's really common in this day and age. We hear a lot in terms of a measurement of trauma, trauma as to whether it's a big T issue or it's a little t issue. I think that in and of itself really minimizes people's experiences. And now we're measuring the impact that a scenario has had on someone, an experience, and how they've impacted. And we begin to take people into even further wrongness about it. That measurement diminishes someone's emotional feelings. And even though we deal with trauma in different ways, even though two people can be in the same experience or a situation, we all have different reactions to it. But ultimately, how it affects us at the emotional core is exactly the same, whether it was something big or whether it was something little. We're not wired for traumatization. We're not wired for it. We can't cope with it, and it doesn't matter
Fight
whether
or flight,
absolutely. It doesn't matter whether it's something that happened directly to us or even an indirect experience where we maybe witnessed something happening to someone else. It can still have as much detrimental effect on our own psyche. Big T trauma is, where, again, I guess is defined as having had something like an event or circumstance in your life that is just the most unthinkable or unspeakable thing that has taken place. Absolutely. The loss of a child, even having, been maybe even sexually or abused or anything like that, become very big catalytic events. So anything that's big and catalytic.
Cancer.
Absolutely. Medical diagnoses. Those are referred to as being a big T. A little t is a car accident. You've been in a car accident and it's a little t trauma, right? Maybe
your Wi-Fi goes down.
Yeah, right.
Although for some people, they turn that into a big T, and it doesn't need to be.
It doesn't need to be,
A lot of people take the little
exactly.
T's and they turn them into big T's.
Yes.
You notice that?
Absolutely. Dramatization of it. That's what our ego likes to do, right?
Just those videos you see on YouTube, people getting angry because the coffee wasn't hot enough or they didn't get enough French fries.
But they're being triggered.
It's becoming a big T.
But it becomes a big T because that event is triggering.
Stat.
Right?
They need you. The French fries, don't worry about it.
Exactly. But this is where I say even those little T traumas, when they happen, can begin to become something bigger, and that's exactly it. But the emotional impact of it, the fear that someone maybe felt when they got the news of a medical diagnosis, the fear of their own, mortality, what this was going to mean, it can be just as impactful for the person the fear of getting behind the wheel again after being in a car accident.
Yeah.
That trauma, the emotional impact that has is exactly the same. And so as I said earlier, we can't diminish that. And as far as I'm concerned, trauma is trauma, especially when we're dealing with it on an energetic level. What we're taking on and what we're holding and the impact of what those thoughts, those feelings begin to have on a person.